At least you know if they're together?
Unsure.
Okay.
There may be.
I'm not sure if I'm about to have a meeting with someone who's claiming Hell Week and they're the.
I think if you say, I think I would have that conversation over the phone just in case. I don't know the depth of this. I'd be surprised if these guys are into Hell Week shit to begin with.
Could have just been a threat.
Yeah.
But definitely not something I want to take lightly either.
Yeah, I don't know how related they are. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I said, there's a lot of let's just say there's a lot of factions in Cyprus. Okay. So I it's a lot more complex than I think with most other areas, right?
Fair enough. I'll try reaching out.
Easy.
Hopefully I can build that rapport with Luciano.
Yeah, hopefully. Who may I ask, who is saying it's Hell Week?
Speedy.
Oh, I think Speedy might be speaking about Speedy and his direct people. That's my gut. Like, Speedy and Luciano are very diametrically opposed individuals. So I think, generally speaking, I think Speedy sort of acts on his thing, and then, I don't know. I'll let them answer those questions, though.
Fair enough. We'll look into it.
All right. Easy.
BAF legislation. So, the one I submitted, I believe he spoke to the Justice. Justice got in contact with me. BCSO has been working on a VAF legislation. I looked at theirs. It looks great too. I have no issue with it. It'd be 9 points as a seizure, 60 days for it to fall off. 3 points for violent felony, 2 points for street racing, 1 point for reckless evading, or
I don't like the idea of reckless evading being a point, if I'm going to be honest.
You don't like reckless evading?
Nah, I think it's I think the dangers of repossession over reckless evading might be too much. I think it should be only violent acts. So, if it's
I think there needs to be more, though. The problem is there needs to be more. People use these vehicles to flee from us. They have these. They do 200 miles an hour down the highway. They're expensive cars, very expensive cars, and there's no repercussion besides.
I think the problem is that it's. I think you may be mistaken on them being expensive.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't think that changes the fact that they're using these souped up cars to get away from us on the daily with little to no repercussion for it.
Yeah, I could see that. So let me understand. If you rob a bank and you catch it, that's 3 points?
That'd be a violent felony. If they had a hostage, yes.
Yes.
I mean, a robbery, yeah. If there's no victim and it's property, it may not be violent. It might be, considered theft as opposed to a violent felony against a person.
Let me spitball something with you.
All right.
I think something that involves shooting people should be the highest.
You're saying a higher.
I don't want to prescribe numbers to it, but if I were to put it on a scale, right? And that scale was based on the level of severity, I would say the highest should be that you're either shooting cops or shooting other gang members or shooting people in it, right? And then one stage down would be that you're using something where there was a violent non-shooting act. The reason why I like that distinction is if someone's clapping cops in that thing, that should hit heavy, right? But it should not be on the equal footing of they took someone hostage. And the reason I make that distinction is, at some level, right, when you look at all the things that law enforcement has to do on a daily basis, you're having to make constant decisions, right? Do we need the car? Do we need to go after these people? Right? And if motherfuckers are shooting people, that should be that car's getting fucked, right? But it should not be on that same plane. Think about it. Someone murks 15 cops, wipes an entire gang. That's at the same as someone that is held hostage, right? You know what I mean? It's a little jarring, right? While the hostage
Yeah.
is violent, there is a distinct difference. And then below that, I would say would be street racing. And then below that, I'm open to ideas, but
what kind of verbiage would you use for something like that? Violent felony is pretty. It's general, but it's correct in the form that it's a violent felony.
I'd say violent felony, but then above that would be
acts against government officials, or no, because it wouldn't be just government officials.
Violent felony with firearms.
That would still considered hostage taking, right?
Involving bodily harm. I'm sure there's a
felony including bodily harm.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Well, I want it with a firearm because if someone knocks you upside the head, you know what I mean? I think that could fall into
yeah, that could.
Yeah.
I'm
sure we can come up with the name. But
yeah,
do you see the kind of the you see the philosophy, right, of what I'm trying to point at here?
Sure. My goal is to keep it similarly on track with what we had now, which was the 3 situations at the most severe would equate to a seizure. However, having room for other points as well in between, that also fall off.
That is true. With it falling off, it's reasonable. Yeah.
So it is an extended period. It's 60 days. But, in a way, if you could think, in my mind, if, I'm a criminal, I'm out there on the streets and I'm using this car and it gets, 6, 7 points on it, I'm to put it to the side. Now we're not going to see that car for a while. Which, if they're consistently using it in crime, that's a punishment. Right?
Agreed.
Maybe we scale the points a little bit different. I'll have a chat. I'm working with Nakota and McQuillan deputies on it.
Okay.
I'll mention it to them and see what we come up with.
Okay.
However, what I wanted to also point to on this was we spoke about the respective counties getting the vehicles and selling them off.
I think that's how it should be. Look, I'm going to be real with you. I'm now hearing shit about marshals are stripping parts. I don't know if that's true.
I've heard that as well.
And it's starting to piss me off. Like, just transparently, there's a lot of fucking weird shit happening. Like
just real quick while we're on that, I have no proof of that. It's just third hand that I've heard that. So
yeah, well,
it's same. Make sure that's clear.
Same, but I've now heard it from enough sources where it's like starting to be like, I don't doubt it, because I'm gonna be transparent here. DOC got absolutely fucked, and I don't know how I can trust the justices. These guys.
Do you actually know what happened with DOC?
Yes, it's this documented. So they pushed this. So here's the history, right? The past DOJ exceptionally incompetent, beyond not only incompetent, it was literally running like an authoritarian government, where they self-impose their themselves as the ultimate authority, which took us months to resolve, right? And what that meant was literally every day you could see what we deemed shadow edits, which meant that without anyone knowing, there would be edits made to the legislation, right?
We're talking the head of marshals / justice.
Yes.
Okay. That era. All right.
That era, yeah. And there was so much egregious changes that was very, like, let's just say, very highly politically motivated, right? Like, oh, I don't like this. Someone says this is a problem. You know what? I agree. This benefits my vision of the city. I'm just going to go change this. And it was really fucking up a lot of court cases. It was fucking up just everything, right? And one of those changes that I didn't really make note of until recently was there was a point where there was an investigation on DOC. Now, mind you, there was things happening within DOC, but that's always kind of been the vibe. DOC historically has, for better or worse, been less above board, right? So you would occasionally, to cite an example, there was someone named Aaliyah something. I forgot her last name.
Reviews?
No, not Alana.
Okay. Okay.
She there was a DOC worker that was like took a gun from the armory, right? Shit like that, like little things here and there. And so there was understandably an investigation. But because DOC was the ultimate authority within Bolingbrook, they told the marshals that they couldn't come in there and investigate or talk to their people in there. And instead of using what was in legislation already, which was the ability for the marshals they already were empowered to investigate the DOC. And if the DOC didn't allow that to occur, it could have went to court. There could have been, you know what I mean? Everything was in place. They took the easy route, which continues to be a pattern, and they changed it so that the DOC now worked under the marshals. So as a band-aid change. But as a consequence of that, the DOC lost their anonymity. Or not anonymity, their autonomy, right? So a disagreement on jurisdiction or whatever the fuck, instead of resolving it like adults, or resolving it in court, resolving it in all the mechanisms that already existed, just a shadow edit comes into play. Now, things happen. The old DOJ disappears. New justices come into place. Scotty, who arguably is one of the main reasons why the prison is so successful, and by successful, I mean, yes, there's been breakouts, right? Yes, there's been bad things, but it's alive, right? And that the majority of, I don't even hear many people complaining about going to prison for 100 plus hours, right? Because they created Scotty and his people created an environment where people were satiated. And Scotty, along with the DOC, put out a contest to bring back their autonomy. And verbatim from Arcadia's mouth, she told me it's not a big deal. We weren't going to take this contest because we're already working on redoing the document, which, mind you, did not change all that dramatically. But because of that excuse, they broke state law and ignored his contest, which is egregiously illegal. Now, I wasn't going to fight that battle for them because too many times I have dealt with over the past 6 months where someone brings an egregious problem to me. I spend dozens of hours of energy, me and my cabinet, and then I get left holding the bag, right, of hate, while the party that I was defending has moved on, right? So I encourage them. I'm like, you guys need to go to court over this. They didn't. They were convinced by the justices, and they're going through what I did early on in my mayoralship, which is like give people like enough benefit of the doubt. They do something that's like unethical, they do something that's unconstitutional, whatever. Like you give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, maybe they didn't know any better. Maybe it wasn't malicious. Maybe they learned their lesson from this talk. Give them some rope, right? Because it's very time consuming to like actually impeach someone. It's a lot of fucking work. That's what the DOC did. They were told, given promises, whatever, and lo and behold, none of that stuff came through. In fact, the latest contest that Scotty put up, the claim was that they couldn't verify their signatures. and a bunch of other bullshit. Now, they did kind of screw themselves a bit because they reused the signatures, from my understanding, from the past one, but they also verified that most of their people were down with those signatures because it was the same contest.
I
Right?
heard 8 of those people were dead.
I'm unsure, but that exposed a problem with the system because historically, when it comes to that verification process, you're supposed to kind of chill and wait. So, and that's what's happened with us. Like, now I have spoken to Faulkner, and I am recommending we change this entire thing, where the moment somebody goes and contests with their argument on the docket, we put up a poll for 24 hours. We don't publicize the poll, but then those contesters need to get people down to the ballots and hit yes. So we're trying to go down that route. But
It's seems like a bit of a messy situation, but I'll be honest with you, not exactly against DOC having some oversight because of those breakouts.
But they do. They don't. So the way that it operates is like DOC inherently will always have oversight. They don't need the marshals. That's actually an administration issue. And I'm going to provide an example, right? The marshals today, it doesn't matter what entity you are, their responsibility is on the state. So if the DOC even was their own branch or responded directly to the DOJ, right, had their autonomy, that is only at an administration level, right? But if there is a crime that happens in there, the marshals already have jurisdiction because it's an investigation. They just come in. This is a marshal investigation. They literally, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, you know. In the same vein, you guys have jurisdiction in Los Santos County, but if some actual investigation opened up down here, like some big one, like, you know, with the plague and shit like that, they're allowed to come in and you can't tell them to stop, right? So it's just
yeah, I mean, if that was already in place and all this seems to be going in circles,
it is. It's shortcutting and it's turning political. But even then, right? Regardless of philosophically who should sit where, the bigger problem is, like, to me, is why would you skip the democratic process, right? It's dangerous.
just be reoccurring.
It does, and that's why I'm running for senator.
You're going for senator?
Yep, I'm gonna start working on it in about a month, I think. Please don't tell anyone, though. It's
I'll keep it close to the chest.
My general vision is no essential power, but rather like a ray of guidance, right? Like, here is the Constitution. Here's what it means. This is how you could do it, or probably should do it, with no real ability to move, like, you know, sway the river, so to speak. You see what I'm saying? Because I am genuinely scared as fuck who the fuck is gonna fight in those meetings. You know, DOC can't even fight on their. They're not even fucking doing any. Even bring the shit to court. You know what I mean?
Right. If they just brought it to court, it'd be, well, essentially they'd be told, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's because of the shadow edits.
Precisely. Luckily,
so
those shadow
messy.
edits aren't happening anymore, minus the penal code. But it's
Yeah, just the penal code.
yeah. So, anyways,
Well, I guess all we could do is keep fighting, right?
yep, that's right. All right.
All right.
All right.
That raise is coming, by the way, right?
I'm sorry.
The raise.
I'm gonna go right down to the courthouse
All right.
announcement, and I'll send you a text, and feel free to let everyone know.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Oh,
Take care there, Nino.
you as well. We should talk about changing the negligent firearm shit into something that's a little bit more, I don't know.
Let's see that real quick.
It's been a problem for months, even before I was mayor. The
Any
TLDR
person who
is
holds.
the problem is that it requires a person who loses their firearm to find an officer willing to write a report. But until that happens, they are effectively guilty. And I think there needs to be a system that allows them to, I think, in my opinion, you should be able to register your firearm. And if it's registered and stolen, you provide X, Y, and Z information via like a form so that the PD has a serial number, all that stuff, what day it was registered. And then if it was stolen, what day that was, you know, something like that. So there's not an administrative burden, but you also get more information up front, you know?
I'm not a huge fan of additional forms, but there does need to be a fix.
Yes.
And with the same impact. I don't know what that would be exactly. I'll have to brainstorm that. But yeah.
You don't think so? Like a form where they put in their serial number and the date of purchase? Because that means you guys would have a list of civilian firearm registry, like off the bat. Like, and so if people were, because this crime is meant to deter like people that are buying legal guns and selling it, right? You would, with it being a registry, you immediately know without a subpoena, like, hey, this guy's buying like fucking one gun a day.
Well, that's if he fills it out.
Well, if they don't fill it out and it gets found, right? That's, I think what I'm recommending here is in order to be protected, you register when you get your gun on the form, and there's a registry if it gets stolen. So if someone is not reporting it, like, so take, for example, someone that does get it stolen. They register, they bought it on Monday. On Friday, it gets stolen. You see those registries there. You also see that they've been always registering. But then you get somebody that hasn't registered ever, yet you're finding a bunch of their guns. I don't know. I don't know. Let's say, let's cook on this.
So they buy, you know, a gun every single day, and then as they sell them, they register them and report them as stolen.
Yeah, that is true. Well, let's cook on this a little bit. Yeah. The current thing sucks ass because it turns civilians into felons.
And that's what I spoke to D about is, you know, with dangerous situation, he had a clean record. He was upfront with me about it. I told him to go, you know, talk to the officer, turn yourself in if you have to, and explain your situation. And you know, there's always officer discretion you can use in that situation to exercise. And you know, ultimately, I didn't want to tell D no, you can't. You know, you got to drop the charges. I wanted him to make the decision, and he did. He dropped it and seen that he had a clean record, and he was honest about it. So it's important to use that discretion in situations like that, you know.
True.
So, but yeah, I think there does need to be a fix on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you know, it's not necessarily always left up to officer discretion.
Yep, 100%. Hopefully,
I'll think about it. You
all
do
right.
as well, and if you think of anything, let me know.
Absolutely. All right, Turner, I'm gonna go crank those numbers up.
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
I'm glad it all worked out.
Always does in the end. Always does.
Hell yeah. All right, brother, I'll see you around, yeah?
Yeah.